Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever it is you are watching from, and welcome to the Season 23 split reveal for the Racecraft Simulations. V8 Veterans here tonight. I'm your host, Hamish, joined once again by the great John Van Ree alongside John. A last-minute scramble has meant that the community out there has had to wait that little bit longer to find out what split they may be in. But it's all going to be worth it.
Waited this long. What's a little bit longer?
What's another 5 minutes? You know, what's another 5 minutes plus the ads and the intro as well. But it's great to be here, of course. To be able to run down these splits across all four, across a little over 200 drivers in the league as well. It's going to be a little bit intense for those who might be wondering where they're seated, wondering where they're sitting as well. We'll break down every single split across the four, starting with split 1 all the way down to split 4 as well. And it's going to be a fun night on the sim. Get into the chat with us, have a chat, give your predictions. I heard that Baldock's paying $1.10 to go to split 1. I don't know who came up with those numbers, but, whispers of him getting jumped up all 3 is quite ridiculous to me, John.
Well, Port Adelaide won today, so anything's possible for Baldock this evening.
Yeah, well, we might as well get straight into it then, starting here this evening with the split 1 crew out there. And, well, if we look at it, it doesn't look too different from last season. The only changes, aside from drivers who have dropped out of the series for whatever reason, the only changes coming in are those drivers who came up from split 2 in last season's champion Logan Barnett, Jason Sprigsteen, Logsdale, Wayne Sanderson and Stacey Boyd, the rookie of Justin McLean, and the returning Stephen Banks of Pacific Esports Racing.
Yeah, Stephen's had a very good time in pre-qual and also has been performing quite well in a couple of other leagues we've been keeping an eye on. And I think when I looked this morning, was sitting still very high in split 2 of Scops. So definitely driving with a bit of pace at the moment is Banksy. and I think he'll give John Gallen some good teammate partnership in split one, which is what he's probably been lacking. No, with only one pelican out there now, we've got a flock of pelicans, so everyone needs to be aware. And as you said, it's quite interesting with, of course, the amount of outs that we've got. We've got one driver on the injured list who may come back halfway through the season. Then we've got a couple of other guys that have got family and other commitments and work commitments, and they've dropped out. So we've basically seen roughly 5 or 6 guys out of split one, which makes it quite interesting in terms of how it's all going to roll out as we go into the other splits. Of course, Jordan Ross back in, our championship winner last season, and has reneged on running the number one. He's going to run the 143. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. I know he really enjoyed season one, but I also know that there's a few boys out there that would love to have a crack at it. Like McNamara, Matt Vanderkraan just seems to be getting faster and faster every time we look at him at the moment, which is great to see with that, and absolutely looking forward to seeing what he can do. And then sort of down the bottom end of the spectrum, a few boys lucky that they didn't get dropped. I'm not going to name names, but, you know, it would have been interesting with 1 or 2 of these boys dropped back into split 2, which we'll look at in a minute. A few guys who I'll be keen to see, of course, is Greg Sharp, who'll be running the over 60s golden banner. So good to see Sharpie still in there as well, Hamish.
Oh, come on, John. We like a bit of controversy. Let's name names. Let's bring up who could have gone down to split 2. I mean, ruffle some feathers. Put the pressure on them for this season to do better.
Well, remembering that we do the average system of pushing things up and down.
Yep.
So, you know, if you haven't managed to do 8 races, we would average out what you have done. So Bruce Tannick is probably one of the likely ones. Very, very lucky to be still in split 1. Craig Friend, Scotty McCune, Dave Kirby, Matty Parker, they're all sort of sitting in that area there. But, you know, in saying that, they're all quality drivers as well. So don't get me wrong when we say they could have gone down. You know, these boys, everything to fight for. New names coming in, of course. Spriggsy, we know, is quick. Spriggsy's got a lift, I think, if he wants to stay there. Dean Logsdale, I think, is a great story. Hopefully he can rise to the challenge. Logan Barnett with ERT, I know Brenton would be expecting big things out of him.
Hang on. With ERT, has he changed?
Sorry,
teams?
no. Sorry, it was ERT. He's now with 9.5.
Yep.
Sorry, I'll correct that. Just trying to keep abreast of things. He was going to stir Brenton up now. You've just taken that away from him.
I was about to say, like,
no ERT with no ERT.
After the high of last season, I thought, well, there's no way McNamara let him go, surely. But
nah. Sorry, Macca. Too busy looking at your hair. You'll get that joke. Logan, yeah, he is a quality driver, as we've said before. He was up in split 1 with ERT a while ago. He's now back down, and then went to 9.5, and then jumped back up now to 9.5 to split 1. Stacey Boyd is the talking point all the way from Buffalo. He's going to do a Josh Allen, I reckon, in split 1 and be very successful. That is my hot pick. Wayne Sanderson waving the flag. This will be the first car, of course, from Southern Cross Racing to represent split 1. So that'll be pretty exciting to see how he goes. It will be a tough battle, though, being a lone shooter up there. But we'll see how Wayne goes. Looking forward to seeing how that challenge goes.
Well, of course, not the first driver from that team to be in split 1, but the first driver since that team was formed, obviously, to get into split 1. Jim Capronis and Andrew Hoffman have been there previously, but under the WKMP Sim Sports banner. This is the first time since SCR has formed that they have now actually got a driver up there. And he's done what I predicted Trent Allen was going to do, which was go from split 3 to split 2 to split 1 concurrently. So bang, 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 straight after one another. And I thought last season Trent Allen was going to be in that position based on how dominant he was in split 3, but it was kind of proven wrong because he only ran 4 races last season, so that it never really accumulated for me. I made a prediction a little while back that I thought Banksy might end up in split 2 based on how competitive split 2's been. I'm not surprised he's in split 1 though. I know he's got some good pace. I know he's previously been in split 1 before. I just thought maybe because he's coming back and how the pace has been in split 2 and how competitive it's been, that might have been the seeding where he ended up. But again, he's proved me wrong, and he's managed to get his way into split 1. So it's a phenomenal effort from him. Justin McLean on debut to get into split 1-2. That's a massive effort as well. I think the biggest thing that I think is knocked back out of this is now the amount of 9.5 Sim Sports cars that could have been in split 1 have been cut in half. They've only got McNamara and Barnett on the initial list. Gamble's out with an injury for the moment, and Luke Grundell has not signed back up again this season. So that team is now at a half. It's now only the 2 drivers, the same as it's been prior to Gamble joining that team as well. So quite interesting how that's played out for the split 1 boys of 9.5 Sim Sports. Good to see Darren Lobb in the list, of course, as well. Previously has run very, very well in split 1-2. Of course, Blake Delaney up there. The Fishy boys have got a big, tight-knit group in split 1, of course, of Delaney, Kirby, McKnight, Whiting, Robbie Griffiths too, who, ever since going up from split 2 many, many moons ago, I mean, this was nearly 2 years ago now that he went up to split 1, he's not come back down, so he's become a full-fledged, locked-in split 1 driver, which is great to see for him. Good to see that the Season 21 Split 2 champion is Steve Grumley has remained in Split 1 as well. And, the likes of Troy Stone Street and Rob Crisdale and others are still doing quite well up there in Split 1 as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like, there's quite a few teams represented, as Nevy Ron's just said that, M1 have got 3 blokes in there. Nova has still got 3 blokes up in there now, particularly with Stacey Boyd joining him. There's still 3 blokes from old mates. Synergy represented twice with Mike Taliarchich, WKMP with Dean Sharpie and Stoney. Accelerate Sim Racing with Kansi, Spriggs and Walker. So there's still some good numbers there, but still dominated by Fishy. But, in saying that, there is a challenge laid out there. And it'll be interesting to see how they all battle on, to be honest.
Well, it's going to be a tough test for those Split 1 drivers, of course. But let's move on now to Split 2 for Season 23 as well. And the one thing that we're going to notice is there are no demotions down to Split 2. There were no demotions from Split 1 to Split 2. So it means that Split 2 is only built up of last season's Split 2 drivers, the new guys who've come in from Split 3, the rookies, and the returning drivers as well from the pre-qualifying. Of course, Andrew Rushworth ran an incredible season last season in Split 3, managed to lock himself back into a Split 2 position. Same with Brenton O'Brien, same for Brian Minogue, Matt Monday, and Michael Quain. All previous Split 2 drivers have made their way back up to the second tier. Glenn Corbett, of course, a previous Split 2 driver as well, finds himself here as well. Has struggled previously since we moved to the 4 splits, and it got a little bit tougher in Split 2, so this will be a good test for Glenn to really prove himself. Halil Cesar, former Split 1 driver, multiple time Split 2 driver as well. This should be a good test for him. Tim Mulford of Phoenix Racing Team, the first time that team is now featured in the Vets. We'll see how Tim does out in this field of Split 2 drivers. And Mikey Harland, who I've got absolutely no idea about. I do not know Mikey Harlan. I'm very sorry, Mikey, if you're watching. Never seen your race, never called a race of yours, so that's an unknown for me, but sometimes the unknowns are the ones that can prove to be the most exciting and surprising, John.
Oh, look, when it comes to Mikey, he set a cracking time in pre-qual, so you can't argue with where that sort of sat in amongst everybody else with what we did at the Red Bull Ring. Like Mikey definitely running in the mid to low 132s, which I thought was pretty good and pretty quick. Mulford's pre-qual time, I'm going to be blunt, very disappointing. I was expecting Mulford to be knocking on the door of Split 1. He's been quite a handy driver in SRW East Coast Scops over the journey, and with the backing of Phoenix Racing, I thought they would have invested a fair bit more into his pre-qual. So a little bit disappointed to see him in Split 2. Halal, he is back. Good to have him back. And Corbs, I think he's back in the country after working overseas and having a work-interrupted season. So don't underestimate Corbs. But also don't underestimate the boys that have gone up, like Rushworth and O'Brien. They fought out a very fierce competition in Split 3. To share the championship is a fair effort in itself. Minogue's proven to be quick. Matty Monday's bouncing back up. He's highly motivated to get himself back up into the Split 1 boys. It's only a small fish. There's only 2 fishy boys in Split 2. between Monday and Van Loon. Van Loon, I know, is doing the job of 2 men at the moment, a bit like myself. So how much time he's going to have to put in the rig, I don't know. But I know Monday and Van Loon both fighting very hard to join the rest of the school. So it'd be very interesting to see how they go. Michael Quain, been in split one before, quite a handy driver. I think he's had a few ups and downs, and definitely looking forward to seeing him being settled again back in the rig and pushing back on the door for split one. But in saying that, Mac Muggleton, probably one of the most unlucky blokes not to get promoted. Bit of a knee injury.
I don't know if we can call him unlucky. He decided to have knee surgery 2 rounds before the end of the season. Surely he could have dealt with the knee pain for 2 rounds and lock himself into split one.
Yeah, but I think he was hoping so he'd be ready to go again round one. I think that's what he was working on. So a little bit unlucky there for Muggo. I think one of the bikes in the league with some pretty good chat. Definitely very entertaining fella. There's a couple of other guys in that group. Caperonis, never rule out Jim. Jim is always quick. He always has time in the rig and works very hard. Steve Lanyon, he was ranked very highly, sitting up there after we did the number of calculations, but only really did the 1 round. So, no, wouldn't have been in promotion contention anyway as far as the pub test went. But, harvest season's finished, and I'm expecting Steve, once he gets himself sorted, he'll be back in the seat and be going pretty hard at it again. Ricky Hyde, he's always been a great improver. Trent Allen is bloody quick. Blanchy is an ex-split one driver. Burns is an ex-split one's driver. There's some pretty handy guys in there. And, of course, the big ticket item that we probably haven't talked about with split 2 yet is the new 9.5 Sim Sports driver, Sean Vandermeulen. Expect Sean to have a massive improvement curve coming under the tutelage of one Sean McNamara. Sean McNamara, known around the V8 sim leagues as the champion maker, was one of the brains behind Dylan Rudd, taught him everything that he knew, and Dylan went on to win the Pro Series. So not saying I'm not expecting too much from the Dutch plumber, but we'll see what Sean can do. What are your thoughts on some of those names, Hamish?
Okay, so I'm about to count them off. You ready?
Yep.
Blanchard. So Blanchard, Muggleton, Burns, Hyde, Van Loon, Vandermeulen, Lanyon, Allen are my picks for drivers who are going to be contesting for the championship. They are the ones who I think, looking at it come round one, and I said last season that Vandermeulen, Muggleton, and I think it was Trent who I said if he can get a whole season in, those are going to be my picks prior to split one drivers coming down. There's no split one drivers who've come down, so all of a sudden those drivers are now in the hot seat. I think Halil says it, depending on how much time he's had in the car, he's going to be very competitive as well. Tim Mulford, I mean, he's used to having his own setups more so than a fixed setup. How's that going to affect him in split 2? It's a tough split. A very, very tough split. It was the cleanest split last season, but with some new drivers coming in or returning drivers coming in, does that remain the same? I don't know. I think Van Loon, if he can get a whole season in, he's going to be right up the order as well. Shane Randall will have a point to prove, being the only Infinity Motorsports driver now in split 2. Jamie Peters will have a point to prove, being a privateer and wanting to run that privateer season as well. Jeremy Bush has got points to prove. Mackay has so as well. I know that Jim Caperonis wants to be up there again. The Viger brothers want to be up there again too. There are so many drivers, and we could pick apart this whole list to an absolute 10th degree, which, I will be across the season. And I think it's probably a good time actually to mention leading into this season as well. The broadcast for Split 2 will be remaining on the same night, obviously a Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and then Australian Eastern Standard Time when the time changes. But Scott Gamble will not be the co-commentator for Split 2 this season. Big news coming out. He'd already made that decision prior to the final round last season, and of course had his health issues in that final round. And we're so glad that he's doing a lot better now. But it meant that I had to find a new co-host for Split 2 coming into this next season. So coming into this next season, the co-host will be a driver from Split 2. It will be a Split 2 driver, so they will have the perfect analysis the weeks that they are in the booth to tell me exactly how the race was from a driver's perspective, how they found everything, and how other drivers might be finding things too from a personal experience standpoint. That Split 2 driver who has had some commentary experience before, you've heard him before on the Vets, it is Brett Fisher, will be the co-host of the Split 2 broadcast for season 23. So I'm excited to see what Brett thinks, how his season's going to go, of course, from a personal development standpoint for him, but his goals, helping him develop as a commentator as well, John, but also how he sees this field as a driver. It's easy for me as a team owner and a spotter and a commentator to give my opinions, but it's something completely different for a driver because they're the ones who are actually racing against this field.
With Fish, of course, being a former Albury Wodonga Kart Club member, and did a little bit of commentary down in that neck of the woods for karting for a fair while, and has done a fair bit of commentary as well in the earlier days of sim racing. He is very knowledgeable, very worthy. Hamish, I think you'll have a good time doing the commentary with him, and his insights, I think, will be very, very insightful coming off the track. And we know Fish is a very quick driver as well, so he will be battling, I think, behind or hopefully with the boys that are knocking on the front door. So we'll definitely get some good insights.
All right, well, we've broken down Split 2. We've had no demotions from Split 1. Let's have a look into...
just before you do that, Dave, So it seems you wanted me to be nasty before. I'm going to continue the streak.
All right, continue the streak.
So if we're going to have a look at the rankings and have a look at those that are in the bottom area who were close to being in trouble, we're probably going to go with the likes of Daniel Sheriff, Sipple, Matty Scholes, Andrew Hoffman, Lorne McKee and Steve Gregg. So because we didn't have any demotions, these boys are safe. But, expecting big things. I know Hoffy's had some shoulder injuries and some computer issues throughout last season, so hopefully they're all been sorted. And Sips as well. I hope he has a good season as well. It would be good to see him fighting back up at the front end, being a former Split 2 driver. Also being a Split 2 driver, but former Split 1 driver as well. Toddy Duggan as well. Expect him to step up and hopefully push on a bit more. And looking at the likes of Matty McMillan to solidify his spot after coming up from last season. Peter Baxter's still in the mix there as well. It's a great effort from Bax. I'm a bit worried about what's going to happen with his team. That's my only concerns there. I'm still waiting for final words on what's going on with his brother. So that's what it sort of looks like towards sort of the back end of the group that I'm expecting big things from.
We've had questions in the chat to learn the pre-qualifying times of the drivers who had to do pre-qualifying. First, the two things, do we want to reveal that? And two, do we want to wait till the end to make people wait?
I can rattle them off at the end if they like.
Okay.
Of course, anyone would like to be aware that the old Bruce McLeod, he's got the beautiful spreadsheet that put the average splits across qualifying times for the league when we raced at Red Bull, and that was the comparison used to where we parked people into splits on top of the experience knowledge that we had of each driver and on top of the deep dive that we do into each driver as well in terms of their I rating and other leagues that they race in.
Well, leading into Split 3, of course, headed up by the AJR broadcasting crew of AJ and Zippy, Adrian Zeal, and Dean Logsdale pops in from time to time, and others as well. The big move is coming in out of Split 4. The champion Ray Smith, who won it, and the dying embers, literally post-race penalties handed out to Brendan Zatira. Ray Smith won that title, moved his way up to Split 3, as did Zatira, as did Brad Hayes, who had a great start to the season last season. Andrew Listener, who was in exceptional form as a rookie into the series, and then Michael Power returns to Split 3 as well. The new drivers coming in off of pre-qualifying, all rookies into Split 3. Glenn Collinson, Joel Oosterwol, Michael Jones, Phil Manuel, Ron Allen, who I've had the pleasure of calling quite a few races of from M1 Racing, and Sean Berger make their way into Split 3. And you'll notice No split 2 drivers have dropped down to split 3 either.
I'll tell you what, though, just on that straight out of the box, Sean Berger has to be a definite for a chubby bun.
Oh, definitely.
He's got to be. He's got to be.
If he gets double-digit positions gained, I feel like it's a need. It's not even a need. It's a necessity, John. It has to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, let's have a look at some of these names. Let's have a look at these new guys. Glenn Collinson, he did a relatively good qualifying time as well. So did Joel. Michael Jones was pretty impressive. Phil Manuel, he was reasonable times as well. Ronald Allen set a cracking time for quali, and as you've been watching Ronald in SRW, and I've done a few run arounds with Ron as well, so I know how fast Ron is in comparison to the rest of us. Yeah, definitely interesting to see how newbie Ron goes. Looking forward to seeing that. Let's have a look at the names coming in from Split 4. Ray Smith, as you're aware, Hamish, disappointed he dropped the Split 4 last season. We had a chat. I basically said, build me a championship, and that's what he did in the end. You talk about the heartache of winning a championship or losing a championship in Brendan's case, on the penalty sheet at the end of the day. But, Ray had to put himself there to win it, and he did that. And after a safety car incident that we had in one of the races, it was pretty fitting that Ray managed to still bounce up and win. In saying that, Zatera won 5 races last season, and he was pretty bloody quick. So that was interesting to see how he went. Hazy, he is an absolute battler. He raced the last 3 races with a broken wrist, didn't tell anybody. Looking forward to seeing what he can do as well. A little bit disappointed one of his teammates didn't join this season in JT, but anyway, we'll see what Hazy can do. Andrew Listener, he was probably the standout rookie that we had come in last season. Very, very proud South Australian, proud Adelaide boy. He drove really, really consistently well. He was always up and about in the top 10, and then in the back half of the season, up and about in the top 5 every time. So very interesting to see what he can do. A couple of other names to keep an eye out for, I think, is Alex Kiddis. He's very, very fast, just needs to learn iRacing, learn a bit more about sim racing, and I think once he gets a little bit of smarts into him, I think he'll be extremely quick. Andrew Galley, always very, very hard charging. Bruce McLeod, I call him the Alain Prost of sim racing because he over strategizes and overthinks it all, but when he gets it right, he's quick. Just going through the lists on the other column here. Glenn Boyce, good to see he's still stayed up and did a relatively good job. McCormick is there. Boardman, I think, is my number 1 pick for the win for the season. He was very close last season. Just needs a little bit of luck to get himself over the line. Pecky, had a good talk to Pecky. He's absolutely loving Split 3, so I think he'll have another cracking season. Mark Dial, he'll come in off the injured list, I think, for the start of the season. So interesting to see how he can build a championship from there. Moses Korolev, you talk about a bloke who's done everything and seen everything in sim racing. You're not going to get any more blokes more knowledgeable than him. He still loves what he's doing. Pete Kelleher, he just needs a great run of a season. He needs a bit of luck and anything can happen for him. And, of course, Pete Latham, Old Foss, he's going to battle away as well. Reg James, he's coming back after moving house for the 3rd time in 18 months. I don't know, he's got the rig set back up, already doing plenty of seat time. Looking forward to having a crack. Crash Clark, love to change the name. Hopefully he'll prove me wrong. Uran, I know, is a bit overworked at the moment, so I don't know how he's going to go balancing seat time with work time. Farrington, never underestimate Faz. Simon Black, our only World Sim Rally Car Champion driver that we've got in our league. We talk about Korolev. Simon Black is what he hasn't seen and hasn't done and doesn't know about sim racing is not worth knowing either. And, of course, Will Munro coming back off the injured list. Looking forward to seeing what Will can do. I hope you've been working him pretty hard, Hamish.
No, he's been working my ears off pretty hard complaining about rear end pain, I'll be honest with you, John. So I'm just glad that he's not complaining about that anymore and he can now complain about getting picked on by RC once again after a season away. But no, I mean, it's a pretty competitive list. Split 3 is getting more and more competitive each season. It's ironic. AJ broadcast this split, but it's the split that has the most of my drivers in it. It's got 6 of them now. Since Justin Wood's come on board this season. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does, especially now in a team of Iron. He had some pretty good performances last season in Split 3. Be interesting how that now works out. Again, in the team environment, practicing with a team and trying to build his way back up again. Will and Robbie and Wayne, they'll all try and build themselves back up to try and get further up the front. It's Will's goal to get back to Split 2. We'll see how likely that is for him. I agree with you. I think Boardman... it's not even favoritism. I think it's just the fact that he has got some mega pace, was incredibly close to a top 5 last season. He'd be my number 1 seed for Split 3 at the moment. I think around him as well, battling him would be the likes of Mark Houghton if he can get a full season under his belt. The likes of, even I think Ray can be up there. I think Zatira can be up there. Brad Hayes. Listener showed some great pace as well. I think Ed Cullen's a definite chance, same for Ed Fox too. So I think there's plenty of talent in this split and plenty of opportunities for drivers to go up in the Split 2 for season 24. But yeah, I'd have to go. I think, James is just, he's got some ridiculous pace, of course, former race winner in Split 2 as well. And I think, his goal would be to get back up to Split 2 too.
Absolutely. And I think there's one big announcement that I haven't made for Split 3 yet, and that is Split 3 will start the season off with a DSO in race control, something we haven't done before. So that'll be very good, I think, helping out Ty and Joe. And of course, the DSO is going to be one Scott Gamble. So you're not going to get more experienced driver looking over the top of RC and having their input into the decisions being made. So going to be very interesting to see how these guys go, because there are some other changes coming with RC that I'll talk about after we finish going through the splits. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how Scotty goes sitting in the RC seat.
Well, we'll now move on. Oh, quickly, who could we have picked on to go down to Split 4?
Oh, that was an interesting one. And of course, that was Kiddis, Galley, Latham, Simon Black, and Robbie Crow. So they were the ones sort of down the bottom end. But all those guys are very capable drivers, and all of them are very, 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 very worthy of being able to stay in Split 3, I think. So, I think everyone's just lucky that there are no demotions this season, and I think they get a chance to live another day and race against the group they've been racing with for a while now, and they all should race fairly well. It's not like we've got too many new guys in the group to rattle the cage.
Well, let's move on now to your level of expertise here, John, for the Split 4 crew, and who's going to be knocking on the door of trying to challenge for a championship next season. Of course, the split with the most new drivers into it. It may be the bottom tier split on the list, but there's been some top tier racing in it the last 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons that it's been in the vets as well. Of course, one returning driver into Split 4, Jeff Eddy of Team AJR, as well as some new drivers in the split of Alan Scott, Ben Collier, Bruce Galloway, Kaya Kinzel-Filio, Darryl Callahan, Doug Wright, Lester Craig, Matt Fu, Nathan Croman. I missed Brad Grant actually on the new list. Brad Grant's also new. Matt Fu, Nathan Cadman, Nathan Favero, and Tim Robinson on that list. I think at this stage, we'll call them favourites in quotes, leading into the start of this championship, surely has got to be the likes of Jeff Sanford, Rob Baxter, and Braden O'Loughlin.
Oh, absolutely. I'd probably go Baxter, Walden, Wilco, Dave Holly also come into that list, Tommy DeWitt. Tommy coming into his second season, plays off a golf handicap of 3, +3 that is. Very, very calculating, very, very cunning driver, working very hard under the tutelage of Troy Stonestreet. Don't underestimate him improving. He sort of got beaten up the rear end too many times from Dave Baldock last season, which affected his results. don't underestimate the likes of those guys. Some of these new blokes are relatively quick as well. A couple of these blokes have got some reasonable eye ratings. Bruce Galloway, Brad Grant, they come in with some reasonable pedigree as well. Probably not quick times, but they know what they're doing in the sim. They've been around a little bit. Jeff Eddy's a great return. Always love racing against Jeff. He's probably one of the most gentleman drivers you can race with. Of course, ironically, we've got 2 Americans in our league, and they both come.
One at either end, and they live about 15 minutes or 15 k's away from each other.
I know. Yeah, I know. And we also have Lester, who comes to us with the guys. He's an American teaching overseas, teaching English overseas. So he comes from out of the country as well. So hopefully he'll be able to have the ping and everything else to be able to get the job done. Tim Robson's an interesting one. Tim Robson comes to us from IPRA. So it's a very interesting case. Tim does race in real life, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes in the sim. Good mates with Dave Worrell, so it'll be interesting to see how Timmy goes. New names always makes it quite interesting. And of course, like we said, there's some names in there that we know can drive, need to put a season together. Pressure's on Rob Baxter now. Rob Baxter quoting, working very hard, quoting that he didn't want to go up because he wanted another season to prove what he can do. Well, guess what, Rob? It's over to you, mate, to prove it. Jeff Sanford was definitely on the door of going up and going down. It's the reason it was actually a late mistake because he'd gone up when he shouldn't have.
That was why we were delayed by 5 minutes because Jeff was in the wrong list. That was why.
And someone's asking where Scotty Perrins is. Scotty Perrins is in the race control seat at the moment. Still trying to sort out where it's going on with accommodation and housing and the rest of it. Sort of moving house is never easy. Just ask bloody Reg James. So Walden, Angry Birds, he's a very quick driver. He's there and abouts. Adam Hughes was probably one of the big improvers last season in Split 4. Luke Powell, the quiet assassin. He's probably the one I haven't mentioned, the M1 driver. He is bloody quick. And he did a handful of races. And then, in saying a handful of races, first race he was leading the race by a good 30 seconds, I think it was, and got taken out by a back marker. And then the last race he was taken out by someone else. But Luke is a very quick driver. And the $1 million question really is can Baldock step up and actually put a season together and beat me? I'm going to lay it out there to everyone in the chat. Who's going to start? Make your bet.
I reckon.
Lay it out there. Baldock or me?
I reckon Baldock, since you did a season in the Mustang and beat him in the Mustang, John. I reckon Baldock needs to do a season in the Camaro. I reckon that should be the challenge. Baldock does a season in the Camaro.
He'd die before that.
Well, he'd probably die before having a Crows logo on his car as well. But still, why not? But I need to ask the question, what is it about drivers who I make a livery for and then the season after they go to a new team? I made one for, I do not zippy. I made one for Vaughan Robinson and Justin Wood. They're now both in a new team. Vaughan at SCR, Justin a part of Infinity Motorsports. Brad Grant, I made one for him at the end of the season. And now he's at AJR before we even get to round one. What is the absolute... What is the reasoning why this can happen? If you're looking at changing teams, contact me. I'll make you a livery. That's bound to let it happen for you. I don't understand how that's happening.
I'd probably say, Hamish, you make them look good.
True. I make them look good, but then they don't get to use the paint that I make them.
Yeah, you turn him into clickbait, which makes some of these team managers step up and go, "Here we go."
Yeah. They look like a proper driver. Let's get them in. Let's have them in. But those are the splits, and those are the splits for this season. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be contested across all 4 splits this season. Are we going to get a brand new Split 1 champion, or is it going to be a former Split 1 champion that will make the claim? Of course, Mr. Gamble with the most I believe the most Split 1 titles ever since the commencement of 3 splits. So many years ago, not there to challenge for the title. Jordan Ross would look to go back to back, and Michael Taliancic, who I know has been a little bit getting annoyed at the Gen 3 car, can he put a season together and challenge for Split 1?
I'd like to think he could. Like, I've always rated Tally as a solid driver, but he just probably needs a little bit more feistiness to take a championship. And in saying that, you know, you're talking about having a team. No, your team boss is the champion, so you know, there's a little bit of added pressure there to maybe be the rear gunner or, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see. I know, as I know, Jordan is very motivated still, but I also know Jordan is very busy as well with his ASRG commitments. You know, Pro Series has kicked off. He's racing in that. Not to mention he's you know, one of the senior managers in that group. And that group is also kicking off this Friday night with the GT cars. So that is definitely going to be an interesting case for him, whether he's got the time to do it. It's just going to be interesting to see. And a few other questions being asked, which we'll come to in a minute. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I just think the Split 1 guys, you know, I still would like to see, you know, I think Vanderkran is half a chance if he can just, you know, find that little bit extra. I know there's quite a few guys. I've been talking with Mads. There's quite a few guys are still working with Mads as well. I know there's quite a few of the Accelerate Sim Racing guys are still working very hard with Pavel and Visma. You know, so there's still the chance there of these boys stepping up, and they're definitely looking for what's going to happen.
I think going into next season, we may see the likes of Ken Latta challenging for the title. He challenged for it last season for a period of time. You mentioned Vanderkran. I think the likes of Lob, if he can put a whole season together. I think McNamara as well. You know, and even some drivers could even sneak up there at some point. You know, Michael Whiting's previously challenged for that title as well. He could be one that challenges for it this season. I have a feeling, in my heart of hearts, John, that the end of this season we're going to see a fishy driver win Split 1. And I think though the percentile leans on my side because they have the most drivers in Split 1. But in saying that, I think they have the most contested drivers as well. As in, if Blake Delaney puts a whole season together, he can be up there. We know that Ladder can get up there. We know that Kirby's been up there before. We know that Whiting's got pace. Could Jamie McKnight somehow return to form of seasons old and challenge for a title again? I mean, it's
I just worry about the quality of the NAPLAN testing going on at the school over there at Fishy. I just think, yeah, I think Ladder's a chance, Whiting's a chance, but they're going to have to really put their nose to the grindstone and work bloody hard for it if they want it.
Oh, no doubt about that. I don't think they'll get it easily. I think, you know, again, if McNamara puts a whole season together, he's going to be a challenger. Barnett showed that he could definitely challenge for it too. Could Stephen Banks and John Gallen work together now that there's teammates together in this split? Could they now work together to move their way up? Same for the Team AJR drivers, Dean Logsdale and Luke Ullman. I think for drivers such as, you know, could John Latham get back up to pace? I said about Darren Lobb as well. You know, could even a Bruce Tannick challenge for wins? I mean, it's going to be highly contested. It's going to be a tough season for a lot of drivers. And I think it's probably one of the tougher splits to predict at this point. And I think that we're only going to find out where the seeds lie probably not till after round 2 or round 3. And I think the same could probably be said for split 2. I probably feel a lot more confident in the fact of calling the likes of Vandermeer and Van Loon, Allen, Burns, Caperonis, you know, all those guys are listed earlier, of being contenders. I think that they are really going to be there.
I just think Van Loon's time poor. In fact, I know Van Loon is time poor, so I think Van Loon won't be won't be knocking on the door there too hard. I know he wants to, he'd love to, but I just know his time poor at the moment. Vandermeulen's probably the one I really want to see what he can do, particularly, like I said, with Macca and the 9-5 team. He's got the opportunity here to really progress forward. And don't rule out the kid either. Like if the kid puts his nose to the grindstone, puts his head in the books and works a bit harder, I reckon he could definitely get himself up a few steps as well.
I think he could get a podium. I think it's going to have to go his way if he wants to get a win. He's yet to prove to me that that he is in race winning form. I think he's definitely got podium in him, and I think that I'm happy for Haynes to prove me wrong. I think he's a very, very talented driver, obviously, and I think he could be up there. Could be up there some races. Again, I think I'm excited to see what Trent Allen can do if he can get a whole season in. Halil Cesar as well. Even Jace Fewens, when he can race, he's been up there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be contested. And it's going to be one for the absolute ages. For Split 3, we spoke about it. We think that James Boardman's probably the favourite for that title at this stage. But there will be drivers in there who can challenge him for that slot. It's going to be about how much luck you can get, how consistent you can be, and how often you can race as well. And then Split 4, Jeff Sanford, I think, is the one to beat at the moment.
I'm going to throw it out and put on Baxter.
Ooh.
Aim high.
Have we got a team announcement yet from Rob Baxter?
Well, I was talking to Jordan Ross. Apparently, conversation has broken down between Rob Baxter and SSR. Apparently, Baxter's not returning Jordan's calls. So interesting. So I'm kind of half thinking it could be Redline. That's the only. I'm just wondering whether he's talking to Max.
Quite possibly, he quite possibly could.
It's being very, very cunning on where he's going and what's happening. So it's the only thing I can think of. I noticed that he's sent Patterson overseas. Pato's overseas at the moment in Vietnam. So definitely trying to do negotiations by himself, which is making it rather interesting.
Well, it's going to be one for the ages this upcoming season. Let's run through. Let's run through the. Let's run through the times that those pre-qualifying drivers set and how close they were to each other.
Righto, let me just rattle them off. So to put that in some sort of comparison, Stephen Banks was a 1:31.951. So 1:35.951 would have put him in between Mark Poynton and Michael Taliancic. So definitely, and based off the results he's been having in SRW and a few other things, I think that would sort of sit him in good stead. Justin McLean was a 1:32.137. 1:32.13 would have had him in the top 15. He would have been quicker than Logsdale, in between Logsdale, Chad Lewis, Christian Smart in that area there, faster than Timmy Nichols and Greg Sharp. So definitely split 1 worthy. Mikey Harlan, like we said, came out of nowhere as a bolter with a 1:32.415. Mikey, that was a pretty cracking time. A 1:32.4 sort of sat him in around about the Heddersfield, Buckland, Matty Parker, just into the bottom end, into the top end of the split 2 guys on that sort of crossover line. So we were quite happy to leave him in split 2. Halal was a 1:32.5, a 1:32.53 for Corbs. Ronald Allen was a 1:32.7. Michael Jones a 1:32.9. So it was about Ronald Allen where we drew the line down into split 3. And then it was basically when we got to Glenn Collins, we got to the 1:32.9 or 1:32.95, which was Phil Manuel. That was where we drew the line, I think. Let me just double check. No, Phil Manuel was still split 2. Got 2 spreadsheets running at once. So when we got to Sean Berger, which was down at a 1:32.9s, Phil Manuel were 9:32.91. Glenn Collinson and Joel Osterwald they both stuck in with a 1:32.929 exact time for both of them, which I thought was quite interesting. And that sort of 1:32.9 sort of put them in a ranking number. Rephrase that. Sorry, 1:32.929 sort of put them in a ranking system of about 58th, 59th. So I sort of stuck in between O'Brien and Mundo. So that sort of put where those guys went. Muggleton was a 153, which was where we were drawing the line, was 153 for dropping down splits to split 4. But because we know Muggleton, we know what, buddy Muggo, you've got me, you're in my head with all your comments. Mulford, 133 was a bit disappointing. And I think we all know that Tim's a better driver than that. We've seen that in SRW, we've seen it in Scops, we've seen it with what he's done in the Gen 2, comes with the backing of a solid team as well. So that's why with the 133, we put him in split 2. So it was a pub test call, to put it down in simple terms. And then the rest of the boys, we're all bigger than 133. So Cadman, Fava, Kinzelflow, Craig, Eddie, Fu, Galloway, Wright, and Scott were all bigger than 133. So that sort of 133 cutoff number, when we sort of started talking on the list, 133s sort of puts you around about 63, 64. And then if I sort of really wanted to narrow into some of those 133s, they were sort of all 133, 125. That sort of puts you around Justin Wood, Verme. These guys also didn't have some good I ratings and things like that we'd seen. So, we've got to be careful of their racecraft and not much experience in the Gen 3 as well. So we've got to see what those boys can do. So that's pretty much what those times were, Hamish. But like I said, the times are also used in comparison with other things and knowledge and information that we've got on drivers.
Well, I don't think there's really much else we have to run through.
Just a couple of little things I'll just bring up. One is just keep an eye out. The regs will go up hopefully tomorrow night, and the sup regs. People looking for rain and talking about all that sort of stuff. I hope you had fun on Thursday night. I hope that threw the cat amongst the pigeons for that practice session. There will be rain this season. All I'm going to say is read the sup regs, and you might get some information in there. So when they come out, read them. It'll probably be a subtle hint that something's going on, because they'll probably come out on a Friday morning for the week when the servers are set and all those sorts of things, or we might just mix it up. Talking of regulations, there are some changes occurring. And we are tightening up and shortening the numbering on pit lane penalties and week race bans for license points. So there's basically a 25% reduction in the amount of points you need to get yourself to those levels. So to be fair to everybody, we've reduced everybody's license points by 25%. So if you were 10 points away before with the changes, you'll still be whatever points you need to be away for the same distance for the next one. But there is another thing when it comes to the rules that we are looking at trying to adopt. We tried to do a bit of an overhaul on the regs, which is going to be a little bit harder to ensure that we do properly. We are looking a lot harder at, and it's something that quite a few drivers over quite a fair bit of time have discussed and what we've been looking at trying to do. And that is, and Madison Down did it very well on Wednesday night in the Pro Series, and that is redressing. Like if you have an incident with somebody, redress. If you spin somebody, redress with them. And if you redress with them, the stewards will look more favourably about what they do next. So if it's only a 1 or 2 positions lost or less than 5 positions lost, there's probably a fair chance you might only just get a couple of penalty points applied to you, where, if you just carry on and continue on down your merry way and not redress, there's probably a fair chance you may get a drive through. We've also tightened up a bit more the severity of our in-race penalties, and basically we've exposed to race control or open to race control the ability to be able to do stop and hold for 40 seconds. So when you think about yourself that, if you speed in pit lane, you're going to get a stop and hold for 40 seconds anyway. So we're just trying to bring our penalties more in line with that. The idea is we want to have good, hard racing. We want to have fun racing, but what we don't want to have is stupid dives and stupid incidents, big lap 1 incidents where, we're taking out a lot of cars. The Gay Commons already jumping in. I was leading to it. Lap 1 incidents are going to be looked at very hard. We've re-looked at for race control their definitions of minor, some, and major impact. And it's definitely going to be a major factor moving forward in the league. Like I said, we want to try and get the gentleman aspect about our racing back into it. And we're trying to bring the respect back in. That's what we're trying to do with that. So just keep an eye on the rules. Make sure you read them. With only a 2-week gap between seasons, I'm not going to do my rules podcast that I've done, or rules cast video that I've done in previous seasons. I think most of you guys know the rules. Definitely need to make sure you read them and are well across them. Make sure you read the sup regs, because it might not just be rain. It could be some other things going on as well. Very important that you read them as well. Anyway, that's probably all the major changes coming, Hamish.
Well, aside from that, we've, of course, practice sessions will be going up this week for Sebring, and it's going to be one hell of a test for the drivers, starting with the Enduro, especially those new drivers who are not, who are fairly fresh to the series or fairly fresh to the cars, possibly as well. So that's going to be a good test. Could be quite chaotic to start at our season 2, but it's been absolutely phenomenal once again. So we so appreciate your time. Want to give a quick shout out to the series sponsors who've stayed on board this season, the likes of Racecraft Simulations, the title sponsors. We've just landed a pretty incredible deal with SimRigs here in Victoria, so that's a pretty wild thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of that and some of the opportunities us sim racers have through that as well. Of course, Logitech G, Parramatta Isuzu, Player One Sim Gear, Nova Sim Sports, Sud Speed Gloves, LGC Images, and Chubby Buns Burgers for their Driver of the Day awards throughout this season. Be sure to check out the Season 23 channels in Discord, specifically the S23 Broadcast Paint section. There is a form to fill out for Reg James where you can pre-give him your paints in case you end up on the podium. You can do multiple submissions if you run both cars. If you want to do it for your whole team, you can do that too. So have a look in there and get that sorted for yourselves. It means that Reg can do some great graphics for the drivers out there whenever they get on the podium or whenever they get a Driver of the Day award as well. Of course, we're still with the broadcasting partners of this season, SimSpeed for the live Split 1 broadcast on the Thursday night, WKMP TV for yourself, John, and friends on the Friday night. What are we calling it this season? It's not the basement anymore. It's the.
It's gonna be the Friday night chook raffle.
That's right, the chook raffle. So show up and try and win yourself a chook. We'll see. Well, if John wins it, I might have to be there just so then I can try and pull out my Look Who Won the Pony Award again. Split 3, of course, 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, 8:30 p.m. New Zealand time on the Saturday nights, and then for myself and Brett Fisher for Infinity Broadcasting for the Split 2 show, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. When we change over, it'll be Australian Eastern Standard Time again on Saturday nights. Personally, for me, for Infinity Broadcasting, got some great stuff coming up. Recently, managed to fund a login for the actual Infinity Broadcasting channel on YouTube, so I actually was able to update that. And also make the Twitch channel. We've got a great Porsche Cup series, which I promoted in the Vets Discord as well. It starts Monday night. Look forward to that. And as well to any other series that may be running on the channel too. But of course, Vets is it's the main priority. It's the one that we're all here for, and it's the one that is is our bread and butter at this point. So appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here with us. Thanks for joining me once again, John. So I appreciate it. Enjoy watching the new intro once again as we head out, and as well to the ads from Logitech G and Racecraft Simulations once again. But until we see you once again, I'll see you guys Saturday. John will see you on Thursday when he races. And if you're watching and not racing, John will see you Friday night for that show for Split 4. But until then, stay safe, drive hard, best of luck in round 1, and bye for now.
Can't wait to hear those engines roar. Hot days and summer nights, finish line in the sights. Can't wait to hear those engines roar. There'll be sparks flying, rubber burning, doors banging, temperatures rising. Can't wait to hear those engines roar. There'll be hot days and summer nights, finish line in the sights. Can't wait to hear those engines roar. There'll be sparks flying, rubber burning, doors banging, temperatures rising. Can't wait to hear those engines roar. They're gonna roll. Ooh, they're gonna roll.
The Racing Series is a new milestone in Logitech G.
All the great old wheels, the G29, the G920, the G923, they all have their own unique way of connecting to each other, but there's no room for expansion with those products.
So the question arose was, what if we were to give the opportunity for the racer to switch out from a drifting wheel to a GT rim?
With the wheel hubs that we've created, that's got a very specific button set, but you can replace any of the steering wheels.
And the real lovely aspect to this was we could give the user, driver and the racer the opportunity to experience different genres of race.
That allows drivers to craft high quality, customized setups that resonate with your individual racing style.
When we start with the design, we always start sketching. Very often, once we've got sketches, we start discussing with engineering.
We had 3 rounds of engineering testing or user testing where we invited in users from sim racing, and every single round of feedback we refine, the product based on what they tell us.
In this sim racing lab, again, we're going to use data to really analyze what a driver needs. We've used everything from eye tracking to the inputs from the pedals, the inputs from the, let's just say, input devices, the wheel and the pedals, the shifter. We're taking that and we're compiling it so that we can build different products based on those individuals' needs for all consumers and all drivers.
I don't know of anyone else in the industry that's actually doing this kind of research into their products to see how their products are affecting performance of their users.
We've built the product to make sure that it's as reliable as possible.
So the innovations in engineering that I'd say we're most proud of is the sequential handbrake and shifter toolless changeover. This is now a patented system, so it's really easy for the user to just switch between modes.
If you give people the tools to do what they want, they will.
They will just go off and have fun.
Introducing the Racecraft PT1, custom-built full chassis racing simulator. The design project, codenamed The Cage, an 80/40 extrusion chassis sitting on top of a Sigma Integrale DK2 Plus 4-point full motion actuator system. No compromises in the cockpit of the PT1 simulator. To maximize the experience, we start with the 49-inch ultra-wide monitor for the greatest field of view in a small footprint of the simulator, down to the SimuCube wheelbase that's tucked up and behind the monitors with SimCore extensions to get things out of the driving area. Everything is connected to a Cube Controls GTX steering wheel with the built-in dash and all the extra button functions available at your fingertips. Driving through the Raceworks S1 pedals, the potentiometer throttle and the 2 hydraulic pedals for brake and clutch ensures you maximize the feel underfoot and seating yourself into an OMP HTER bucket racing seat with OMP belts connected to a G-belt tensioner to provide that extra feeling and the heightened experience while you're driving. Additional interfaces and accessories in the PT1, we have twin butt kickers, one on either side of the OMP seat, as well as a Jinx sequential shifter, the SimPush Race Logic timer to the left-hand side, a Racecraft built-in WinSim kit with Philips Hue lighting and a built-in soundbar, plus the OMP side net to finish off the experience in the PT1. The Racecraft PT1, build number 1, the ultimate in sim racing experience, combining the best products in the market with the passionate, no compromise approach that goes beyond racing simulation.